The loud ones always get attention first, don't they? They walk into rooms needing eyes on them. They speak too much, prove too much, show too much. Noise became their strategy because silence makes them uncomfortable. They want people to know they're moving. They want applause before results. They confuse attention with power, but somewhere far from the spotlight. Someone else is missing from the conversation, not because they have nothing to say, because they have something to build. While everyone is busy announcing every move, every thought, every small victory, you're somewhere in the dark laying bricks nobody notices. No audience, no validation, no need to explain, because real things are built differently. Mountains don't make noise while they rise. Foundations aren't visible while they're being created. And by the time people finally look up, what you're creating is already too high for them to touch. Everybody notices the loud ones first. That's how the world works now. Noise wins attention. The person shouting the hardest gets the room. The one posting every move gets the eyes. The one constantly proving something gets the reaction. Strange, isn't it? People have become addicted to announcements. They don't just want success anymore. They want witnesses. They want people watching while they climb. They want applause before achievement. They want recognition before results even exist. Watch closely, and you start seeing the pattern. The loudest person in the room usually isn't the strongest one. They're often the most restless. They need the noise because silence asks uncomfortable questions. Silence asks who you are when nobody is looking. Silence asks what you're building when there's no audience. Silence removes the stage, and some people are terrified of that. Because once the lights disappear and the crowd goes home, all that's left is a person alone with their own thoughts. Not everyone survives that meeting, so they stay loud. Constant movement, constant talking, constant proving. Every little step becomes a performance. Every action becomes an announcement. Every moment becomes a chance to say, "Look at me, notice me, validate me." And people clap. People react. People stare for a few seconds and move on to the next distraction because attention has become cheap. People throw it around like confetti now, here 1 second, gone the next. That's the funny part. Noise creates visibility, but visibility doesn't create value. A firework makes a lot of noise too, bright for a few seconds. Everybody looks up, everybody stares. Then darkness returns and nobody remembers where the light even came from. Loud things usually burn fast. They need constant fuel because they survive on reactions. They survive on eyes. The moment people stop watching, panic begins. Power works differently. Real power has never been desperate. Real power doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't chase crowds through the streets asking for approval. It doesn't stand on tables screaming for attention. Real power is patient, quiet, dangerous in a way people don't understand until it's too late. Because while noise is busy introducing itself, silence is busy becoming something. That's why the world keeps missing certain people. They overlook them, ignore them, underestimate them, not because they're weak, because they're quiet. And people mistake silence for absence. They think if they can't hear movement, then nothing is happening. If they can't see progress, then there is no progress. They assume the silent person is standing still because they don't understand one thing. Some of the strongest things in existence make almost no sound at all. Roots grow in silence. Foundations are built underground. The most important part of a building is the part nobody sees. Nobody stands outside staring at concrete beneath the earth saying, "Wow, look at that." They only notice the finished result. They only notice the height after the structure rises. But the hidden part carried the weight long before anyone paid attention. Meanwhile, the loud ones are still talking, still announcing, still trying to convince everyone they're becoming powerful instead of actually becoming powerful. Because noise loves witnesses. Noise needs witnesses. Silence doesn't. Silence can sit alone in a dark room with an unfinished dream and keep working without applause. No cameras, no crowd, no proof for the world, and maybe that's what scares people the most. Someone who doesn't need attention becomes difficult to control. Someone who doesn't need validation becomes unpredictable. Because when a person stops chasing eyes, they finally start chasing something bigger. And people who build in silence eventually create things noise can never compete with. You ever notice how some people can't exist quietly? They walk into every room like they're performing on a stage nobody asked for. Their voice gets louder, their stories get bigger. Their presence stretches across every corner like they're trying to occupy space that doesn't naturally belong to them. At first, people mistake it for confidence. They think loudness means strength. They think constant talking means certainty. They think attention follows power. But if you stare long enough, if you really watch people when the masks start slipping, you begin seeing something strange underneath all that noise. Need is a dangerous thing, especially the need to be seen. Because the person constantly demanding attention is usually trying to fill a space inside themselves that never stays full. Validation became their fuel, not purpose, not discipline, not inner belief. Validation. They survive on reactions the way a fire survives on oxygen. Every compliment becomes another breath. Every stare becomes another second of life. Every approval becomes proof that they matter. And once people stop looking, panic quietly enters the room. That's why they keep talking, keep posting, keep announcing, keep proving, because silence feels different to them. Silence feels like standing in front of a mirror with nowhere to run. No distractions, no audience, no applause, just them, just their thoughts, just the things they've spent years trying not to hear. Silence asks questions people spend entire lives avoiding. Who are you without the attention? Who are you when nobody claps? Who are you when nobody notices your effort? Those questions hit harder than people admit. Because some people built their identity around reactions, around being noticed, around hearing their name spoken by other people. They slowly became addicted to outside approval without realizing it. The world trained them well. Post something, get attention. Show something, get validation. Speak louder. Get rewarded. Repeat it enough times and suddenly attention feels like survival. That's the trick. People start believing eyes create value. They think being watched means being important. They think visibility equals worth, but attention has become one of the cheapest things on earth. Millions of people are screaming every second, hoping someone notices them. And when everybody is screaming, noise loses meaning. Still, they keep chasing it, because empty spaces inside people can make them do strange things. Some people buy expensive things to feel important. Some people create fake versions of themselves to impress strangers. Some people exaggerate success before success even arrives. And some people become loud because loudness creates the illusion of certainty. If they sound confident enough, maybe nobody will notice the fear underneath. Maybe they can hide insecurity behind volume. Maybe they can bury doubt beneath performance. Maybe they can convince themselves too. That's why loud people often explain themselves too much. They need people to believe the image because deep down, they're still trying to believe it themselves. The performance never stops. The act keeps running. Smile here, speak there, impress this person, get approval from that person. Keep the machine alive. Exhausting, isn't it? Running after attention every day sounds like carrying chains and calling it freedom, because real confidence moves differently. Real confidence doesn't need witnesses standing near by taking notes. It doesn't wake up needing proof from strangers. It doesn't collapse because somebody looked away. Real confidence survives in empty rooms. It survives in silence. It survives when nobody notices. People who constantly need validation become prisoners of other people's eyes. Their mood changes with reactions, their worth changes with opinions, their identity changes with approval. Give them praise and they rise. Ignore them and they fall. And the saddest part, many of them don't even realize they handed strangers control over their peace. Funny thing about being unseen, people assume it means being forgotten. They look around, searching for noise, searching for movement, searching for proof that something important is happening. And if they don't hear your name, if they don't see your face everywhere, if you're not constantly announcing yourself to the world, they start writing stories in their heads. They assume you disappeared, they assume you slowed down, they assume you stopped growing. Human beings have a strange habit of believing that if something isn't visible, it must not exist. That's because people have been trained to worship visibility. Show everything, announce everything. Display every move like life became a stage and everyone's competing for front row attention. Somewhere along the way, silence started making people uncomfortable. Being unseen started feeling like losing. If people don't notice you, they think you're falling behind. If people don't mention you, they think you're becoming irrelevant. Strange little illusion, isn't it? Because some of the most powerful things in existence operate where eyes can't reach. Seeds split open underground before anyone sees a tree. Roots spread in darkness long before branches touch the sky. Foundations are buried beneath the earth while buildings rise above it. Nobody gathers around dirt and concrete saying, "Look at the masterpiece." They only celebrate what appears later. They celebrate height while ignoring depth. They admire results while forgetting what carried the weight. People do the same thing with other people. If they can't see your progress, they underestimate you. If they can't measure your growth, they dismiss you. If you move quietly, they assume you're standing still. They mistake silence for weakness because noise has become their definition of movement. And maybe that's where hidden strength begins. Because there's a strange freedom in being overlooked. A freedom most people never understand because they spend their lives begging to be seen. The unseen person moves differently. No pressure to perform, no need to explain every step, no audience waiting for updates, no eyes creating expectations, just movement, just growth. Just work happening in places nobody thinks to look. People underestimate the power of invisibility because they're addicted to attention. Attention feels good, feels warm, feels important. Someone notices your effort, someone praises your progress, someone watches your journey, and suddenly you feel real. But attention has a price nobody talks about. Once people become used to seeing you, they start expecting things from you. Expectations become cages. Opinions become chains. Suddenly, you're not building for yourself anymore. You're performing, and performance changes people. It makes them rush, makes them force progress before it's ready, makes them announce unfinished things because they need reactions, makes them shape themselves around applause instead of purpose. But hidden people don't carry that burden. The unseen person learns patience, learns discipline, learns how to continue without rewards showing up every day, learns how to walk through empty hallways where nobody claps, learns how to work while feeling invisible. That kind of strength changes a person, because anybody can keep moving when crowds are cheering. Anybody can keep smiling when people are watching. Anybody can feel motivated when eyes are following every step, but becoming stronger where nobody notices that's different. Building while people forget your name, different. Continuing while the world assumes nothing is happening, different. And maybe that's why dangerous people rarely announce themselves. Maybe that's why truly powerful people don't waste energy proving they matter. They understand something noise never learns. The strongest transformations usually happen where nobody is looking. Dark rooms, silent nights, hidden places, moments where nobody applauds, moments where nobody notices, moments where a person keeps building even when the world already decided nothing important was happening. People love performances now. They don't just live anymore. They broadcast. Every thought becomes an announcement. Every small step becomes proof. Every move gets placed under bright lights so the world can stop for a moment and stare. Somewhere along the way, life turned into a stage, and everyone became terrified of working in the dark, terrified of moving without witnesses, terrified of becoming something before people recognize it. So they perform. They announce plans before taking action. They speak about dreams louder than they work for them. They build images instead of foundations. And the strange part, people clap for it. They reward visibility, reward noise, reward appearances. Because appearances are easy to consume, easy to understand. A loud person walks into a room and instantly people think, there's confidence. Someone constantly showing movement and people think, there's progress. Human beings love things they can see. But reality has always worked differently, because the strongest things are usually happening where nobody's paying attention. While everyone is performing on stage, someone else is sitting in silence. No spotlight, no updates, no audience staring over their shoulder. Just work, just effort, just hours disappearing into something bigger than attention. And people rarely notice those individuals because quiet people confuse the world. Society doesn't know what to do with someone who isn't asking to be seen. Because silence creates mystery, and mystery makes people uncomfortable. People become suspicious when they can't measure your movement. They want updates, proof, explanations. They want to know where you are, what you're doing, how far you've gotten. And when they don't get answers, they create stories. They assume you've disappeared, assume you quit, assume nothing is happening. That's because they can only recognize movement when it makes noise. Funny, isn't it? The person posting every little victory gets called successful before success even arrives. Meanwhile, someone building quietly gets overlooked because there's no evidence for people to stare at. No performance, no show, just invisible effort happening behind closed doors. But hidden effort carries a strange kind of power. Because when nobody's watching, honesty enters the room. No pretending, no acting, no image to protect. No need to look successful, just reality, and reality reveals things performance hides. It reveals discipline. It reveals patience. It reveals whether someone truly wants the goal, or just wants people seeing them chase it. Because wanting attention and wanting growth are two different addictions. One survives on eyes, the other survives on purpose. And purpose works quietly. Purpose doesn't need an audience sitting nearby taking notes. Purpose doesn't wake up every morning needing approval from strangers. It keeps moving through empty rooms, keeps building through lonely nights, keeps laying bricks nobody notices. Most people never learn how to do that because silence feels heavy. Silence forces people into a room with themselves. No distractions, no reactions, no applause arriving every few minutes. Just work repeating itself over and over while nobody notices progress. And that's where many people break, not because they're weak, because they expected excitement, they expected recognition. They expected validation, but real building rarely feels exciting. Real building feels repetitive, feels invisible, feels lonely, feels like carrying pieces of a future nobody else can see yet. And while performers keep checking the crowd to see who's watching, builders keep staring at the structure in front of them. One is creating reactions, the other is creating reality. One needs people, the other needs purpose. And somewhere behind closed doors, away from noise and applause and endless performances, people are creating lives nobody can interrupt because they stopped building for attention and started building for something the crowd could never understand. People are obsessed with height. They always have been. They look at the top of mountains, the top of buildings, the top of success stories, and their eyes immediately lock onto what rises above everyone else. They stare at the visible part, the polished part, the part that shines under sunlight, and then they ask the same question every time. How did they get so high? Funny question. Because almost nobody asks what's underneath. Nobody stands outside a skyscraper admiring concrete buried deep beneath the ground. Nobody takes pictures of steel hidden underground. Nobody gathers around foundations saying, "That's the impressive part." People celebrate what they can see. Height gets attention, results get applause. Visibility gets recognition, but hidden things carry weight. Always have. The strange thing about foundations is that they're built in places nobody wants to stay. Underground, in darkness, in isolation. You dig downward before you ever rise upward. And most people hate that part because digging feels invisible. Digging feels slow. Digging feels like effort without reward. You spend time creating something nobody notices, nobody praises, nobody understands. And people become impatient because the world trained everyone to expect instant proof, instant progress, instant recognition. Build something today, show it tomorrow. Work on something for a week, announce it immediately. People want visible movement because visible movement feels real. If they can't see growth, they begin questioning whether growth exists at all. That's where most people quit, not because they are incapable, because they become discouraged by invisibility. Because hidden work plays tricks on the mind. You wake up every day and nothing looks different. You put effort into something and nobody notices. You sacrifice time, energy, comfort, sleep. And the world keeps moving as if nothing changed. Days pass. Weeks pass. Sometimes years pass. Silence becomes heavy. Doubt starts whispering. Questions begin crawling into your head. Is this even working? Am I wasting my time? Shouldn't something be happening by now? And those questions become dangerous because people naturally want evidence. They want signs that effort matters. They want reassurance that pain has purpose. But foundations never reveal themselves immediately. That's what makes them difficult, and that's what makes them powerful. Because while people are searching for quick results, hidden builders are creating strength nobody sees. Brick by brick, day by day, quietly, patiently, repeating ordinary actions while extraordinary things slowly take shape underneath. Most people never stay long enough to experience that transformation. They chase excitement instead. Excitement feels better than patience. Noise feels better than silence. Recognition feels better than obscurity. So they skip the foundation stage, rush through it, ignore it, pretend it isn't important. They want the top floor without creating support underneath. They want visible success without invisible sacrifice. And then pressure arrives. Pressure always arrives. Life starts adding weight, expectations, challenges, failures, responsibility, loss, stress. Suddenly the structure begins shaking because weight reveals things attention never can. Weight tests foundations, not appearances, not words, not promises. Foundations. And that's where hidden work finally speaks. Because strong foundations don't panic under pressure. They've already spent years carrying weight in silence. Years growing where nobody looked. Years becoming stronger beneath the surface while people chased visibility. That's why some people survive storms that destroy everyone else. Because while others were busy decorating the top, they were reinforcing the bottom. While others were searching for applause, they were creating stability. While others wanted to look powerful, they wanted to become powerful. People only notice the height later. They only stare upward after the structure rises high enough to force attention. Then suddenly questions appear. Suddenly people become curious. Suddenly they wonder where it all came from. But they still miss the truth. Because unreachable heights are never created at the top. They begin in hidden places, dark places, lonely places, places where nobody notices the digging, places where nobody celebrates the struggle, places where invisible foundations become strong enough to hold things ordinary people could never carry. People have a strange relationship with words. They trust them too easily. Say something with enough confidence, enough volume, enough certainty, and suddenly people lean closer. They believe promises. They believe announcements. They believe declarations spoken with conviction. Maybe that's because words are comfortable. Words arrive quickly. They require no patience, no waiting, no effort from the audience. Someone speaks, and people decide who they are. I'm going to become successful. I'm changing my life. I'm building something big. I'm different now. The room nods, the eyes watch, the reactions come pouring in. Strange, isn't it? People celebrate beginnings more than endings now. They celebrate intentions more than outcomes. Someone announces a journey and instantly receives applause before taking a single step. Somewhere along the way, speaking became confused with becoming, and maybe that's why noise spread everywhere. Because talking creates a temporary feeling of progress. You say your plans out loud, and for a moment it feels real. You tell people about your goals, and suddenly their excitement becomes your excitement. Their reactions become fuel. Their praise becomes motivation. For a little while, you feel closer to the destination simply because people looked at you differently. But feelings lie, words lie, excitement lies. Reality doesn't. Reality waits. Reality watches quietly from the corner while people make promises to rooms full of strangers. It waits through the speeches, waits through the announcements, waits through the performances, because reality understands something people forget. Anyone can speak. Speaking costs almost nothing. A person can talk for hours about discipline while avoiding hard work. They can describe ambition while sleeping on responsibility. They can create beautiful stories about change while repeating old habits in secret. Words allow people to create versions of themselves that don't actually exist yet, and people fall in love with those versions. Not because they're true, because they sound good, because language paints pictures, and pictures can be powerful enough to distract people from reality. Someone says the right things, posts the right messages, performs confidence in the right way, and people begin believing they're watching growth happen. Meanwhile, real growth moves differently. Real growth doesn't introduce itself every morning. It doesn't stand on stages making announcements. It doesn't pause every few minutes asking whether people noticed, because results don't care about appearances. Results arrive carrying evidence. Evidence cannot perform. Evidence cannot exaggerate. Evidence cannot hide. That's why results make people uncomfortable. Results remove imagination, remove illusion, remove excuses. Once results appear, there's nothing left to debate. No speeches needed, no explanations needed. Reality speaks for itself. And reality has a cruel way of exposing noise. The person who kept talking about becoming stronger eventually faces pressure. The person who kept announcing discipline eventually meets temptation. The person who promised growth eventually meets struggle. Then truth appears because pressure reveals whether words had weight behind them. Most people discover they loved the image more than the process. They loved being seen as hardworking more than working, loved sounding ambitious more than sacrificing comfort, loved talking about mountains more than climbing them. That's why silence becomes dangerous. Silence strips away performance. Silence removes applause. Silence asks a simple question most people fear. What are you doing when nobody's watching? Not what you're saying. Not what you're posting. Not what you're promising. Doing. Because results are built in places words can't reach. Built in lonely mornings. Built in repetitive effort. built-in moments where no cameras exist and no audience waits nearby. And while noise keeps introducing itself to the world over and over again, results keep moving quietly through shadows, carrying something words never managed to create. Proof: funny how people suddenly become curious once you rise high enough. Not in the beginning, though. Never in the beginning. At the start, silence makes people uncomfortable. Your absence from the noise makes them assume nothing important is happening. They look around, don't hear your name, don't see your movements, don't notice your progress, and they quietly create conclusions. Human beings are talented at creating stories when information disappears. He vanished. He probably quit. Nothing's happening. He's not going anywhere. Strange little stories people tell themselves just to make sense of silence, because people need visible evidence. They need proof that movement exists. If they can't see progress, they assume progress stopped. If they can't hear noise, they assume the room is empty. That's why quiet people confuse everyone. Silence creates mystery, and mystery unsettles people because unanswered questions have a way of crawling around inside human minds. So while you're building quietly, they stop paying attention, and maybe that's the greatest gift nobody talks about. Because attention creates pressure, pressure creates performance, and performance creates distraction. When people are constantly watching, something changes. Suddenly every move feels important, every mistake feels bigger, every delay feels dangerous. You start thinking about reactions instead of direction. You start thinking about appearance instead of progress. You stop building naturally and begin performing for invisible crowds standing in your head. But when nobody's looking, something different happens. Freedom appears, no expectations, no audience, no pressure to prove anything. Just space, space to fail quietly, space to learn, space to become. Most people never experience that kind of freedom because they spend their lives chasing eyes, chasing attention, chasing validation from people who won't even remember their names years later. They become prisoners of visibility without realizing it. And while they're busy performing, you're somewhere else entirely, building quietly, patiently, brick after brick. Day after day, no announcements, no speeches, no applause. That's the part people never see, the lonely part. The repetitive part, the part where nothing feels exciting. Nobody talks about those nights. Nobody talks about the moments where progress feels invisible. Nobody talks about sitting alone wondering whether any of it matters, because hidden work feels strange. You sacrifice things and nobody notices. You improve and nobody reacts. You change and nobody sees it happening. The world keeps moving while you keep building, and eventually people forget about you. But then something shifts. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly. The structure starts rising. Small changes become visible. Results begin escaping the shadows. People start noticing movement where they once saw silence. And that's when curiosity returns. Now they're watching. Now they're asking questions. Now they're paying attention. The same people who ignored your silence suddenly become fascinated by your progress. Strange, isn't it? Nobody wanted to watch the construction. Nobody cared about the digging. Nobody noticed the sacrifices hidden underneath. But now they stare upward. Now they wonder how it happened. Now they ask where all this came from. Because people always notice height. Always, but by then, something else changed too. You're different. The person who started this journey needed recognition, needed proof, needed people. But the person created in silence learned another language. Patience, discipline, isolation, strength. You stopped building for reactions a long time ago, stopped needing applause, stopped looking around for approval, because somewhere between being ignored and being noticed, you became dangerous, and when they finally look up and realize how far you've climbed, they discover something uncomfortable. You're no longer building where they can reach. You're standing somewhere their noise never managed to follow.